Greetings, math fans. All right, the reason I'm making this video is not really a lesson, but it's just a little more explanation of how to do some of these, I guess, a little more challenging problems. But the first thing I want to do is I want to talk, like, literally 1 or 2 minutes about the easy problems. Okay, so if you see something like, sine of the arc cosine of negative 3/5. Okay, remember, this is actually an easy problem because this is one where you draw a picture. Because you're saying, hey, it's the sine of some angle that I have no idea what it is. All right, so you got to sketch a picture. And remember, guys, when you're taking the sine of something, or cosine or tangent, just think of when we did it back in the day. If I said sine of pi over 6, okay, you came up with a ratio of 1/2. All right, so just you got to keep that in mind. That's the same thing. If I take the inverse sine of 1/2, you're going to come up with a radian measure or a degree measure. But you got to remember that you guys already know this. Okay, so just remember, if you see a sign in front, you're going to get some sort of ratio. Okay, if you see the inverse sine, which is something new for this chapter, you're going to come up with that angle or that radian measure. You've got to remember that. Okay, so real quickly for this problem, just make sure you draw it in the right quadrant. Of course, we're cosine, so you got to draw it in this quadrant here because of our chart, right? Cosine, the range for cosine is between 0 and pi, so that's where I'm going to draw it. And then, of course, make sure you label everything correctly and put your signs there. Cosine is x over r, so it's negative 3/5, and of course this is a 4 here. And then that's your theta, and then you're just saying, hey, what's sine of that angle? And of course it's going to be y over r, so the answer to this problem is 4/5. Okay, it's really, really easy. But remember, that's when sine's on the outside. Okay, that's when you sketch a picture. And same with any of the double angle or any of the sum and difference. You got to know those formulas. That's the first and foremost thing. And then you have to draw a picture. So I'm not going to do this whole thing. But if I said sine of the arc tangent of negative 3/4 minus inverse cosine of negative, I don't know, 3/5. Okay. I'm going to have to draw a picture for each one of these. And I'm not going to do this whole problem, but you just have to know your tangent is going to go down here. And it's y over x, so it's negative 3/4. And then, of course, that's 5, 3, 4, 5. And this guy is going to be cosine, so we're over here. And it's negative 3/5, and there's a 4 here. And you're going to find, of course, it's sine. This is sine of A minus B. And just know your formula. Sine of A, cosine B, and then it's same sign plus, or sorry, minus cosine A sine B. And then you just kind of plug all that in and you get your answer. Okay, so that's that for that, and for double angle, those are really pretty easy. I really want to spend time now on the problems I think that are difficult or a little more challenging, and that's like saying, if I just said the inverse sine of 1/2. I know some of you guys are looking at it going, wait a second, Mr. Curvis, this is really not that difficult. Okay, yeah, you're right, it's not that difficult, but I'm going to compare that problem to this problem. Inverse sine of the sine of pi over 6. Now, I want to make the point is these problems are the same problem. Okay, they really are the same problem. And the first thing you want to recognize is this guy right on the outside here. When you see that on the outside, what is your final answer going to be? It's going to be a radian measure. That's what your final answer is. You have to know that. Because again, sine of pi over 6 is 1/2, but the inverse sine of 1/2 is pi over 6. Okay? So it's going to be a radian measure or a degree measure depending on what we're doing here. But you got to know that. It's so important. Okay, so that's the first thing. And the second thing to do is, I'm going to put this in red because it's so important. Your final answer has to be, so final answer must be in range. Okay? It's got to be in range, which means you got to know this chart here. And again, do you memorize a chart? No, you should just know anything cosine related, which means cosine or secant or cotangent. That's going to be between 0 and 2 pi. So I'm going to draw this one more time, this chart. You guys have to memorize this. So they're all in the first quadrant. They're all positive. Negative is inverse cosine, inverse secant, and inverse cotangent. Right? Remember, cosine rules there. And then, of course, it's negative for inverse sine, inverse cosecant, and inverse tangent. Because tangent rules there. Remember, cosine is cosine, secant is 1 over cosine, and cotangent is cosine over sine. And sine rules in the fourth quadrant because it's sine, 1 over sine, and sine over cosine. Okay, and then of course these being negative pi over 2, 0, pi over 2, and pi. All right, so again, that's got to be committed to memory. So let's go back to our original problem here, math fans. I asked you guys to do 3 steps. And it doesn't matter, it's 3 steps for this problem, problem number 1, I'll label number 1, number 2. 3 steps for both of them because they're the exact same thing. And they each have their little level of difficulty, but it's really not bad. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is, remember our first step, and I'll write that down here. First step is the SIGN. Now, for problem number 1, that's easy. You get really close to the 1/2 and you go, what's the sign of that? And you say, it's positive. So these are our steps. So it's positive. That's really easy. For number 2, that's a little more challenging because you need to draw a picture. Now this one's easy. You're saying pi over 6, and this is based on all students take calculus to figure out what the SIGN is. And you look at that chart and you go, oh, sine of pi over 6. Gee, that's positive because we're in the first quadrant. So there we go. Positive. Okay, second step. You want to find the reference angle. Now for the first one, that's a little more challenging because you have to say, gee, the sine of what is 1/2? Okay, you got to find that reference angle. So the sine of pi over 6 is 1/2, so that's theta prime equals pi over 6. And with the second problem, that's actually easy because you just look at that bottom number and you say, oh, gee, pi over 6. There we go, pi over 6. And the third step for all these is look at the range. And I'll say look at the range chart, but really you just look at the range, okay? And what are we talking about? We're talking about inverse sine. So it's positive. So you go to the chart and you say, oh, it's got to be in the first quadrant. So remember, let me draw this again. Here it's theta prime. Here it's pi minus theta prime. And here it's negative theta prime. And this quadrant is never used. Okay? So I look at the range chart and I say, well, it's positive, so I'm in the first quadrant, so my answer is just pi over 6. Pi over 6. Pi over 6. Okay? Right? That's not too bad. All right. So let me just erase the examples, but keep all the stuff on there because I just want to keep it on there. All right. So let's do another problem here. Let's do the inverse sine of we'll do negative 1/2 now, and I'm going to do the inverse sine of the sine of 7 pi over 6. Okay, again, these problems are really actually going to be equivalent, but I want to show you kind of side by side how to do these problems. Okay, the first step, you're going to determine the sine. Again, for this first problem, it's easy because you get really close and you go, oh, it's negative 1/2. I want to make a point here, math fans. This negative 1/2 is what the sine of 7 pi over 6 really is. That's why it's interchangeable. Okay, so here I'm giving you the ratio in the first one. In the second one, I'm telling you I'm not going to give you the ratio, but you know what? It's sine of 7 pi over 6, and you have to go, oh, okay, that's negative 1/2. So you have to actually do a little more calculation for the second one, but it kind of all balances out. All right, so let's keep going. So anyway, this is negative, and for this problem, you're going to actually look, now let's look at our chart here. All students take calculus, and you say, oh, 7 pi over 6, we're over here. So what is sine? It's negative. Okay, second step, find theta prime. Okay, so for the first problem, that's a little more challenging because you have to say sine of what is 1/2. I don't even care that it's negative 1/2. It's a reference angle. So I just want to say sine of what is 1/2. Oh, that's pi over 6. Okay, so reference angle is pi over 6. The second one is easy because you look real close and you go, oh, over 6. Reference angle is pi over 6. Okay, third step. So you notice we have the same answers for 1 and 2, so it's going to be the same answer looking at the chart now. So you look at the range chart, it's negative, it's pi over 6. What's our answer? Well, aren't we in the fourth quadrant? So it's negative of the reference angle, so my answer is negative pi over 6. And negative pi over 6. That's the answer. Okay? All right, it's not bad. So let's, again, let's keep all this information up here, but let's do some different ones here with like cosine and whatnot. Okay, so let's do a problem where you have the inverse cosine of negative 1/2, and we have the inverse cosine of the cosine of 2 pi over 3. Okay, so the first problem, let's follow all the steps here. Okay, the first one is sine is negative. Second step, let's do that for this one. And 2 pi over 3, of course, we're over in this quadrant here, so it's negative. Second step is the cosine of what is 1/2? Well, it's pi over 3. And this one, I don't have to look at that, it's just pi over 3. Look at the bottom number there. Okay, and the third step, look at the range chart. It's negative. It's pi over 3, so it's pi minus pi over 3, which is 2 pi over 3. So that's my answer. Now I want to make a point here, math fans. This one actually, for this problem, this guy right here, that was a more difficult problem. And you know why? Is because if I look back at this guy right here, and I told you this in class, okay, if this number right here is in range, if that number is, if that 2 pi over 3 is in the range of that we're looking for, then we're done with the problem. So the answer could have gone right off the bat to 2 pi over 3. Now, if you didn't recognize that, doing all the work is fine, but if it's in range, then you're done with the problem. Okay? So, just real quickly here, I could have done a problem here. Let's do inverse cosine of the cosine of 5 pi over 6. Is 5 pi over 6 in the range? It is. Of course it is. It's between 0 and pi, so my answer to this problem is 5 pi over 6. Okay, so anything in the range is good to go. Here, I can do this one. Inverse secant of the secant of 20 pi over 21. Now you're like, that's crazy, Mr. Curvis. What are you doing, man? We have no idea what that is. Well, isn't 20 over 21, isn't that just a little bit less than pi? Don't you guys agree that's somewhere right over there? Is that in range? Yep. What's my answer? 20 pi over 21. So if it's in range, and you take the inverse secant of the secant or the inverse tangent of the tangent, or if it's in range, you're done with the problem. If it's not in range, you got to do some work. Now for these kind of problems, this guy right here, okay, you always have to do a little bit of work. Okay, you always got to figure out where it's at and the sign and the reference angle, and then kind of put it in its correct quadrant. So that one you always have to do some work. It's the stuff that I have here in yellow. That's where you might not have to do any work at all. You might have to do some work, but you may have to do nothing at all. All right. All right. So let's do a few more problems here. I'm gonna erase all this stuff again. Okay. So let's do tangent. Inverse tangent of negative root 3. Okay, and let's do another one here. The inverse tangent of the tangent of 2 pi over 3. Okay, again, these are going to turn out to be the same. Of course, I'm just showing it to you just to compare them side by side. All right. So our first step for each of these guys is find the sine. Well, this one, again, this is easy. It's negative. And this one, well, tangent 2 pi over 3. Aren't we in the second quadrant? Yeah, so this one's negative. Second step is find the reference angle. So you're going to say tangent of what is root 3? Well, of course, you remember if it's root 3 over 3, that was 30 degrees or pi over 6. But this is just root 3, so it's pi over 3 is the reference angle. And then this one, of course, is easy because it's just pi over 3. All right, then the third step is look at the chart. Negative and pi over 3. We go to this fourth quadrant and we just say it's negative pi over 3. Okay, pretty mellow. Okay, so let's. I don't think I need to do any more side by side here. So let me erase this next group of problems here. Okay, so what happens if I do the inverse sine of the sine of 13 pi over 4? All right, it looks a little nasty, but math fans, do coterminal. Bring it down to something more reasonable. So isn't 13 pi over 4? Can I subtract 8 pi over 4? Which is 5 pi over 4? So my new problem is really inverse sine of the sine of 5 pi over 4. I think it just helps to figure out what quadrant you're in, because you know you're going to be in this quadrant now, okay? And I know my reference angle is pi over 4. So don't you guys agree it's negative? It's pi over 4, so it's my answer. Negative pi over 4. There you go. Done with the problem. Okay, that's pretty easy. Let's try another one here. How about inverse secant of the secant of, let's do 5 pi over 3. All right, well, let's go to 5 pi over 3 is over here. So do you guys agree? This goes to cosine, so it's positive. Right, all students take calculus, so it's positive there. And what's the reference angle? Pi over 3. So what's the answer? Pi over 3. You almost didn't even need to know anything about secant. You just have to know that it's in the, we're talking about with a cosine, right? And then it's where it's positive. That's really easy. Okay. Here, let's fit another one in here. What about inverse cotangent of the cotangent of, let's do 11 pi over 6. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, well, where's 11 pi over 6? We'll use this chart up here. 11 pi over 6 is the same place over here. Isn't it the fourth quadrant? So isn't it, oops, it's negative, right? Cotangent is negative. And what's the reference angle? Pi over 6. And if I go to my chart, cotangent is in the second quadrant when it's negative. So isn't it pi minus pi over 6? So my answer to this problem is 5 pi over 6. That's it. Okay. Not bad. Okay, let's do a couple more here. I figure if I spend a little bit of time with some of you guys on this, it takes a little bit to get used to, and once you do get used to it, you're good to go. Okay, but just remember, guys, all these problems we're doing is when the inverse is on the outside. When it's on the inside, you draw a picture because it represents some angle, and we don't know what that angle is, but it represents an angle. Okay, and you sketch it. Okay, you got to remember that. You got to study this stuff. This is not that easy, but once you get it, it's really not that bad. So let's just do how this one inverse cosecant of -2. Okay, so that's in some ways it's a little more challenging, but that's not bad. You're gonna ask the same questions I've been asking you guys over and over. There are three questions, three things you have to fill in. One is what is the sign? Well, that's really easy. That's negative because you look at it. The second thing is what is the reference angle? Now again, I don't have you guys memorize all that stuff with cosecant. And remember, you can rewrite that because that is a ratio. I can write that as inverse sine of -1/2. Ooh, that is much friendlier. Now, if I say the sine of what is 1/2, you're going to tell me, oh, well, that's just pi over 6. And that's your reference angle. So what's your answer to this whole thing? Well, it's negative. It's pi over 6. Let's go to the fourth quadrant, and the answer to this one is negative pi over 6. Okay. How about inverse cotangent of -1? Ooh, okay, let's do it. First is it's negative. I can see that because I look very close and I see it's -1. Second step is I know my reference angle is pi over 4. Okay, look at the chart. It's negative. Pi over 4. The answer is pi minus pi over 4, which is 3 pi over 4. Okay, let's try the cosine of the inverse cosine of -1/2. Okay, and so what do you do? Right, you're going to say, I tricked you. See, I tricked you because I wanted to prove to you, well, maybe I tricked some of you guys, but I want you guys to see, hey, cosine is on the outside. This baby's on the inside. What do? Draw pictures. Now, the nice thing about this is, well, first of all, I'm going to draw this picture. I know it's in this quadrant. Guys, if you're taking the cosine of the inverse cosine of something, all right, it's going to be -1/2. I mean, I can draw it, which I am going to do it. It's -1, 2, and I could put, okay, this is just going to be root 3, right? 4 minus 1 is 3, so it's root 3. But then I say cosine of theta, cosine is x over r, so -1/2. That's pretty easy, okay? But you got to remember that, okay? If inverse cosine is on the inside, you draw a picture. And it does cancel it out. Okay, the only time it doesn't cancel it out, and I just like to mention that too, is if I had a problem like this, inverse cosine, or cosine of the inverse cosine of 3/2. Okay, that actually is a DNE. And why is it DNE? Because if you go to draw that picture, you would do x over r. So 3 and 2, and that's impossible. You can't have a radius that is smaller than one of its sides. So, or the hypotenuse, right? So that would be does not exist or do not eat, depending on if you're eating food at the time. All right. So anyway, we covered a lot of different types of problems. I hope this kind of clears things up for you guys. And but just remember, sketch pictures if it's on the inside, if it's on the outside. Answer the three questions: what is the sine? Find the reference angle, and then look at the range chart. All right. That's it, math fans. Have a great day. Adios. Goodbye.